have an esteemed speaker with us, Elisa Zhang, and I'm going to introduce her in a second. But before that, just a little bit about myself. I mean, our company, and I'm going to share my screen. And this is going to be very quick. I'm not going to take any time. Um, we are about 55 participants. I am from, I live in Long Island here in New York. I have a company. I'm a multifamily syndicator. Just a little bit about myself is, I come from a very strong technology and management background. And, I have owned single families, I have owned multifamilies. And for last 3 years, I have been doing I've been doing syndications, right? And my competency is basically trying to reduce the redundancies from the processes, and that actually, that is helpful for improving the NOIs from any project. And because of that, we are able to produce good results for our investors. um, and over the last couple of years, I have built a passion for assisted livings also, where we are trying to help seniors, and that is a business that I'm trying to improve. That is all about me. I'm here to share the knowledge, the wealth, helping investors, and we plan to do more syndications in future in multifamily. Please do stick around till the end, because we are going to talk. We will have an opportunity that we are going to share with you very briefly, and then we will have an opportunity to interact or network with the other folks who are there on this call, right? I mean, I know a bunch of you who are there on this, but please try to, uh, you know, hold your questions towards the end. And during the networking time, you will have one-on-one interaction with other participants who are basically joining today. So having said that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. That was all my introduction, and I'm going to talk about the guest that we have today, Elisa Zhang. I know Elisa for last couple of months, but I was very, very impressed with what she is doing. She has about 11 years of experience in real estate, and she's of course accredited investor, and she, focused on value add C-class family properties, right? She has passion for providing quality and um, affordable apartment rentals in and out of a state. Basically, she lives, I think, in Arizona, right, Alyssa?
I actually live in Seattle, but I
Seattle.
invest in Arizona and Dallas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You invest in. I mean, you control about $100 million worth of portfolio in Arizona, Washington, and in Texas state also, right? And you have done many, many deals, and you are very experienced in partnerships and syndications, and you have designed many good systems and implemented for constructions and professional property managers. He has founded Easy, Easy FI University, Easy Real Estate LLC. I mean, she has many companies. One of, these are just some names. So I was very, very impressed by Alisa, and I asked her to come to our, so to say, podcast or webinar, whatever we want to call it. And she graciously accepted. And today we're going to talk about a case study, the work that she has done in Phoenix. So format is, for about 30-40 minutes, we are going to talk about this case study. After that, we will have an opportunity to network with all the participants. We'll the smaller breakout rooms. And in between, we will try to have 5 to 10 minutes to talk about a deal that we are working on ourselves. So we'll talk about that. So guys, please hang on towards the end, because there would be a lot of things, important things towards the end. So Alyssa, all yours now. I want to give you the
Thank
control.
you.
You have the control, share whatever you need to do, and I'm
Yeah.
here.
Let's see. Thank you so much, Prashant, for that warm introduction. It kind of makes me blush. Uh, just a little bit, like I'm just been doing some multifamily stuff. We start investing in 2009, and today what I'm going to present. So just FYI for everyone here, just make sure that you mute yourself when we're doing the presentation. So just take a minute, make sure that you mute yourself when we're doing the presentation. And if you have a question, put it into the chat box and Prashant's gonna monitor that for us. We have a lot of content to cover. I've run these type of presentation all the times and it always goes over because there's just so much information, and Prashant has given me another challenge that he's limiting me to like 30 or 40 minutes. So we'll see if an hour 20 minutes content can be condensed into that. So really important, make sure you mute yourself. And if you're not, I may call you out. It's kind of how I run. Cool. Really awesome. So today I'm going to take you through the case study for Silver Oaks, which is a 36 unit in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm able to do this presentation because this is a project that we just own ourselves. So I do syndication like Prashant himself. But this is a deal that we just put together with a partnership, so with a tenant in common structure. So I'm able to kind of share that information and not subject to SEC, not subject to SEC regulations over here. And Prashant, if you can kind of like make sure
Can you link it to
folks,
me?
yeah, folks who are not muting themselves can mute themselves.
So, Elisa, you have to mute yourself, unmute yourself. I just muted
Oh
you.
yeah, cool, awesome, thank you. Cool. So who am I? Let me just put this on the small side. So I've been investing since 2009. For some of you guys who are interested in my personal story, I've been guest on multiple shows before. And I think there's another episode of Best Ever podcast is coming up soon. So I kind of talked about a little about who I am. So if some of you guys are interested, I'll leave the link later on at the end of my presentation. You can contact me personally by scheduling a call with me. So I own about 172 units in Washington, Arizona. Actually, that number has increased. I always forget to update the sheet as the month kind of goes. So I'm about principal on about 1,400 units, maybe 1,500 around there in Texas and Arizona. I invest in another 1,500 plus unit passively. I think it's very important. As syndicators, we also test our own products, not necessarily our own products, but also passively invest in other people's project. Gets to know like how, like it's called a testing of products, right? So I invest passively. It's a great way to grow my net worth without doing anything. And I'm also principal on projects as well. I also own projects 100% by myself or with partners. So I mostly focus on B and C class multifamily building with value add strategy. What that means is that we basically do some sort of renovation or we make the management better. So to derive value and in case like increase the valuation of the projects and increase the rent, like monthly cash flow as well. I have performed the multiple 1031 exchange that actually helped us launch to our first couple of fourplexes ourselves. And then kind of and the rest of it is the history. And I've also put together about 2 tenant in common structures before. We'll kind of talk about this a little bit more because that's how Silver Oaks was put together. I've performed multiple bursts. For multiple of you guys who doesn't know, it's basically a fancy name for value add. It was coined by Brendan Turner from Bigger Pockets. I think it's called a buy, renovate, rent, refinance, or repeat. And I'm founder of EasyFI University. The logos above over here, which is an education program that help others do what I do and to reach financial independence sooner than they have ever dreamed of. And I'm also a founder of Easy Real Estate, which kind of does the syndication investing side of the business. Cool. So next up, so here are some of our current projects in Phoenix. Notice Silver Oaks is not in there because it's a full cycle projects. We have sold it, but we still currently holding these other projects. We've been kind of focusing on A location properties or B location properties in Phoenix Metro. and smaller units, because I'm going to talk about that later, because it's such a growth market. So it allows us, while everybody is competing for the larger deals, it kind of allows us to kind of play under the radar, um, and allows us to kind of do actions and make exit a lot quicker on smaller projects. So in Dallas, we have other operations over there. We own about 6 properties over there. And we basically focus on 150 units or above. So over there is bigger projects that we're working on. And this is actually wrongly, it's actually 241 units. But basically, we focus also, we started from C location properties, and then throughout the year, we have kind of migrating towards like the better locations. Because as we know, right now it's kind of special time. Not only that, we kind of see the trend over there too. So we want to be in a good location, which helps with collection as well. So that's kind of what we do in Dallas. In Dallas, I partner with Jazz and Ready. And we're vertically integrated as a company. We have our own PM company, which is what that means. In Phoenix, we're small enough that we couldn't quite have our own PM company. So today I'm going to be talking about Silver Oaks, which is a 36 unit in Phoenix. And this property is a little bit north, just right adjacent from Grand Canyon University. What I would classify, it's a C minus location. This type of deal probably wouldn't pass our underwriting nowadays because the location criteria didn't quite match us. But we bought this property in 2019, which is still the pre-corona time, which is actually a fantastic, value add strategy. We're still going on over there. So we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be using this as a case study, but really instead of just talking about the specific about the deal, I'm going to share about like how we actually finding a deal, because you guys can raise your hand. I think finding deals are like the one of the hardest thing to do, and how do we actually structure the deal, and then what we did with the project. And then the hope is that every project is different, so that you guys can take away with lessons that you learn that you can apply, essentially to your own operations or projects that you're interested in investing in. So the first step when we're doing acquiring a business, right? Like when you're first starting getting into a market, is the first step is picking a market. So at that time when we purchased this property, which is the first one in Phoenix, we always believed in investing our own money into something, try it out, see if it works before we bring any investor into our deals. So in Phoenix, it's a new market. So we had capitals that we want to deploy into that market. So there was a month and month of building relationships and etc. Before that, we have kind of picked Arizona as a market that we want to target on. So how do we actually pick a market then? At the time, we were successful in Dallas. We already have a few deals there. But I live in Seattle, so I am very how do you say it? I'm very explicit, to I want to make sure that whatever the lifestyle that I have envisioned is going to be, it's designed properly so that I can live that lifestyle. Because for all you guys listening, some of you guys want to use multifamily to create your day job, which I did. I didn't really want to quit my day job and yet have another day job that is posting restrictions that I did not want to deal with. So to me, it was very important to find partners, a foot on the ground, so that I can invest remotely. So which is why I live in Seattle. Right now I'm actually in California. I've been spending the last 3 months traveling, and I'm planning on spending another 2 more months traveling and just kind of dodging the Seattle winter, which is not very nice. So and then it's also pretty good for social distancing right now. So right now I'm in the California beach house, and not mine, but away from all the populations essentially. But how do we pick a market? So in the beginning of 2019, actually it's towards the end of 2018, we have kind of decided that we need to kind of branch out from the Dallas market. And we're just kind of looking around for all these markets. There's about 10 markets in the country that is really growing. If you really count them, maybe 20. You can invest in any of these markets and be successful, but all of them are very competitive. So we picked the Phoenix. There's a couple reasons because Phoenix is very close to Washington, Seattle, where we live. There's direct flights to there very often. Just for a convenience factor, it is kind of warmer. It's nice to visit. And also it is a growth market. So we saw a lot of data charts that kind of shows the rent growth is phenomenal in that area. When I visited Phoenix, I realized it was like Washington market 2 years ago or 3 years ago, where Washington market was doing double digits rent growth. And this is what I observed in Phoenix market. There's a lot of kind of signs and data that you can pull from these reports that we subscribe to. So what we look for is above average rent growth market, so 2%, more than 2%, and population growth more than that. I'll share some slides later on Phoenix, what that actually looked like. And then we also want to pick B minus location or better, because we had some C class asset, C location, and they have been traditionally very tough to operate on. They can be successful. Now, this project in particular, because it has nothing to do with COVID, it was like a really hot market. So we were okay with doing a C minus location. There's a specific uniqueness about this project because it was the only 2 and 3 in the vicinity of that whole 5 mile radius, and it's right across an elementary school. So that's a uniqueness of that asset. So again, there's always exception to the rules. The reason why we made an exception to the rules over there is because it was a very unique asset in terms of unit mix and compared to all its competitors, right? So looking for that specific, unique specialness on like a finding diamond in the rough, essentially. And we usually target about above 70% total return and 7% cash on cash. This is kind of the same metrics for our investors as well as stuff that we invest ourselves. And in fact, the stuff that we invest ourselves may have a slightly lower requirement because we may take on more risk. And also because if we did 1031, maybe the requirements are a little lower because all the tax saving is not accounted for over here. So and then we want to take a long-term fixed loan. That was a big thing for us. And usually we look for above 100 unit for syndication. That rule gets shattered as well because recently we just syndicated a 27 unit, which is tiny, got oversubscribed within 4 hours sending out an email. And we look for unit costs less than 150K. But that being said, again, this is a little bit of softer rules because we do purchase property that is more expensive than that and it makes great profit. But in general, these are kind of like how we pick the markets. And the reasonly, I would say another thing that's very good to note is affordability gap, because now if the mortgages are such a low interest rate now, if people can make the payments to the mortgage, even if you're in a really good A location, you're going to experience some turbulence in terms of turnout tenants because people can just go buy a house versus renting. So, I've seen a lot of recent value add deals out there that even though they're in really good location, sometimes you kind of have to look at could you really push that rent to that amount. So this has been lately a focus for us to see it because we've learned a few lessons from our even A-class location during the corona time on that. So these are just some metrics. When we look at the top employee growth, there are charts you can read. You can subscribe to like Moody's analysis or Berkadia or any of that. Some of these are free and you can kind of see what the top markets are. Phoenix is obviously one of these, right? But the percentage of changes is huge. That's like probably number one. Seattle, I'm in the market. That's exactly same. These two market, like I said, is displaying a very similar pattern, but Seattle is like 2 or 3 years ahead. Now there's pretty much no rent growth in Seattle, but Phoenix is like still going. So effective rent growth is another thing that we look at. We talked about that before, so I'm going to fly it through it. And why Phoenix market? So why do we focus on Phoenix market? Because Maricopa County is like the largest in terms of population in the whole country. And it's probably double than the second one up, which is Riverdale. And Riverdale, California is next to Maricopa County. So all these folks are kind of investing in Phoenix, because it's really close. It's fifth largest city in the nation. And it is the fastest growing. It just ranked number one in Q2. I don't know, like I haven't really checked. It and Seattle has been kind of neck to neck in terms of number one and then number two. And at Q2, it's at an 8.4 year over year growth before COVID. and then at 5.4% even during COVID, Q2 report shows a 5.4% rent growth over there. And Phoenix has a very low unemployment rate, probably the lowest in the nation at 8.3%. So, and it's a landlord friendly state. In fact, funny fact is that when we owned Silver Oaks, the government actually had a relief program during COVID, and they actually paid us for tenants who did not pay for the rent. I have property in Dallas, I have property in Washington. Nobody else has given us money in that regard other than the Phoenix market. So here's the other stats in terms of why Phoenix is great during COVID, and it is, doing well. It's kind of like the darling of the country right now. And here's another like top six market comparison here. The Florida is in a different report, so it's not here. We're not doing like compare to compare. But as you can see, we have San Antonio, we have Austin, which arguably a lot of people says the best market, right? Salt Lake City, it's actually a little bit hidden gem. Dallas and Houston, all these are phenomenal markets. Love to be in all of them. In fact, we're in two of them and want to be in Houston. But as you can kind of see, when you stack all these with the rest of the market, they are like the best, one of the best over here, even compared to Austin. We actually did a one-to-one comparison with Austin. They're pretty neck to neck, but the growth is phenomenal in terms of rent growth. And this is a number that we really kind of look for, right? So like, as you can see, they're double then the next one up, which is Dallas on that. So then the second step, once we picked our market, so we've been kind of flying to Phoenix a lot. So that's kind of how it started. And then we want to build a team because we've been really successful everywhere else because we partnered up with people. So in this case, I met my partner through a network group, and we assembled a team, and their responsibility is supposed to be foot on the ground doing asset management, and I kind of serve as more like the experienced person walking them through that. Before this deal, they never had any other deal, so this is like their first deal. So also other teams through that local relationships, we've met a lot of other people like brokers, wholesaler, tax protester. Like these are all the people that you needed to assemble into your local team because they're location specific. And then there's the national team. For lender, I use my guy usually at the Arbor directly as a direct lender. But in the national team, I think having a mentor is very important. So you can learn a lot of these things without making too much of a mistake. You will make a mistake, and mistake is good because you learn from them, you recover from them, you're so much more stronger. But with mentor, you can kind of not lose so much money. And then CPAs, tax strategists, the insurance broker, lenders, they can be all global. And I have a bookkeeper who's been saving my lives. I've kind of slowly turned her into my personal assistant as well. Appraiser, security lawyers. So these are all like people at the national level where you need to assemble, which we did through our networks of people that we have assembled at that. But most importantly, we build very strong relationships with a local partner. And then we put a team together. So I just want to kind of I've showed this slides in a couple of the presentations before, but when you're putting a team together, apartment investing is a lot of work. It may look sexy like on the surface, but when you really dig into there's a lot of work, right? Like as any business, there is a lot of work to kind of get them up. So it's very important to keep the team mentality in mind and then see how you can actually leverage other people's superpower and then fit into these seats. And in general, I think there's multiple roles over here, not really a fast rule over here. Some people can do both. Some people can do one and a half of these, and you kind of make a good team. But you need a person who's really good at finding deals, and then you need an underwriter who's usually good with number, and you need someone to like help raise money. You have to have the ability to raise capital, and then you also need someone who is, I heard someone else was like a military background. That is like a great background. You will be probably a good fit as an operation because there's procedures involved and making sure there's a lot of follow-ups. And then I put experience as a horizontal bar over here because you need that experienced person to carry you through the whole deal if it's your first deal. And in this case, I was kind of serving as that, but I was also doing underwriting the capital side of things and also lending experience to the operation. But eventually, I actually had to be the main asset manager, working together with my other asset manager on this. So kind of had my hand in all of them. Um, okay, so know your submarket. So in the case of Silver Oaks, how we actually found the deal is we've been building relationships with our partners for at least like 5 months or so until they came up to us and presented the Silver Oaks deal because they were thinking about, hey, can we syndicate this? Um, and when I looked at the numbers, it didn't really fit the bill for syndication. And at the same time, we were exiting a project. After less than 2 years, we were exiting a project in Tacoma. We made about 100% total return on that thing, which is great. But we were thinking about doing a 1031 exchange. So this actually is a perfect opportunity to kind of get in. So I would say don't box yourself in a one particular model. Always thinking about how can you actually make a deal work. I've heard a lot of people talk about, well, the deal just don't work. But have you thought about a different way to structure it? Could you actually just do a partner? Because syndication projects needs to have a lot of more margin in order to pay the general partners. But if you just own a deal, co-own a deal together, you don't have that margin and you can still make that work. So for guys who are thinking about getting into first deal, the other model may also work, right? Just keep that door open. And the third step is knowing your submarket. So by that time, we have visited Phoenix a couple times, but our foot on the ground is a native Phoenix-born person. So he obviously knows the submarket very well. But even then, I will make sure that they actually drove the properties. So at one time, I was kind of coaching through them the whole acquisition. At one time, I was asking them to do the rent comp, and then actually using an online system, I was able to kind of spot a few competitive like comps I want them to shop, and I actually had them to like cold call them, actually show up, look at the comps to see if there are comparable units. So there's a lot of due diligence that needs to go in, but you also need to know your sub market. So by looking at a deal, if this fits into the pocket of your criteria or not. Phoenix happened to be one of these market. Street to streets can have a drastic difference. So you could be on one block and it's really, really good, and the next block can be a little seedy. So same with Houston is like that market. Whereas Dallas is, you can probably look at the report because the radius is so big, everything is so sprawling. So within a mile, it's probably just only your property. So it's a very different these market. Houston is a little bit spotty as well. So how do I get to know your submarket? Like if you're really serious about buying multifamily, you get to that market and drive the market, take the flight out there, meet the broker, do a tours, know your numbers, do a lot of research. So we had a month of building that information in our bank by flying over there and talking with a lot of people, third party people, right? And building that relationships and that trust with your partner. And how do you source a deal? Well, in this case, our partner brought it to us. They did it through building relationship with broker. Nothing really math science over there. But the most important things is in multifamily, most deals are coming from the broker, but the brokers will have hidden deals. Even brokers I close deal with, they wouldn't present to me all the deals. They only give me deals they think I will buy. So it's a little frustrating sometimes to some of these brokers. But nonetheless, you kind of want to get on their top list. So get broker list. So how do you build a broker list then? Like these are all different sources like meetups, LoopNets, and like broker website, PMs. Like these are all different ways to meet different brokers. And then you have to develop a cost script, learn the lingo, show the proof, get to know them, and really follow up, right? Like I have some top brokers. I keep on calling them pretty much every week or two, ask them about deals, and I had them flat out told me one time and said, just call us every week because we never know what we have, and the volume exchange so quickly. So you never know. Like some deals can be just done in like 2 days. So just call us all the time. So in that manner, then I'll call them all the time. But some brokers don't like to be called all the time. They like to be, you know, taking control. So you just have to fill out what it is. So in this case, my partner built a really good relationship with the broker. That's how he kind of got the deal. But as that goes, I'll show some numbers later on. We're at the underwriting site. I'm going to show some number later on, but it didn't quite pencil out because if you add all the margins in, your return will be like around 6%, maybe cash on cash return, and then your total return will be about 65 or something. So nobody will be interested in that as a passive investor, and it's kind of in the ghetto. So it's not a project that is really suitable for syndication. And all syndicators thinking that they need a 100 unit above, not true. But again, 36 unit for first time syndicator, it's going to be a little more tough to sell. So, but no matter, because we looked at the deal, we see an opportunity, and we could have just do a 1031 exchange, and that actually fits our bill really well. And without that margin, I'll show the underwriting later. But underwriting just means an analyze all deals. So when you're analyzing deal, you need a T12 is a trailing 12 P&L statements, and then the rent roll, the current rent roll. So then you can kind of dig into the number from here on. And then you need some sort of modeling formula. And then nowadays you should do stress testing as well. And underwriting itself like a whole workshop to do as well. But real quick, for people who are interested in doing syndicating or buying larger apartment building, I always recommend people to go download Michael Blanc's analyzer, deal analyzer. Costs like 200 bucks, 250, I don't really know. He might have trainings on it. It really kind of helps cut down our spend on underwriting. Um, okay, so this is like a quick underwriting back in 2019 what we did. You can kind of see some of the assumption is a little aggressive, but the total return was like 74%, and then 7% cash on cash return is what we have projected. Which is really not that sexy for a C minus location. But again, we were doing 1031, so it made sense because we would be saving, lots of taxes over there. So by itself, it made sense. And then we were able to kind of structure a tenant in common deal, which I'll show an org chart later, that allows us to 1031 into the deal, which is great. So this is our underwriting on 5-year projection. Any syndication projects, if you're passive investing or actively investing, you should probably see something like this. So you can kind of verify the assumptions and whatnot. And this is 2019. So caveat on that, we don't underwrite this so aggressively anymore. But with that 70%, 7% in mind, we were actually underwriting this pretty aggressively. And we like to do it that way for our own project because I see an opportunity. This property was at least 150 per door per month under rented as its current condition. So our plan was to upgrade the units, but not super upgrade it. It's just take it, fix what's already there, and make a classic upgrade, not even like a middle package. Which just means getting a newer white appliance. In some cases, maybe we'll swap for a black. And if they're tile floors, so we will maintain them if they're good shape. But if some of them are really bad shape, then remove it. We'll add the plank to it, like the vinyl plank to them. The Phoenix market is actually really expensive with labor. So a 7,000 per unit upgrades will probably get you a classic if you really stay on it. And a $10,000 updates will get you maybe a silver, like maybe black appliance and etc. Some people has done like 25K per unit upgrades, which is really high. It sounds really ridiculous. If some of our folks over here is from Dallas, like, you can probably get the same finish for $5,000 a unit. So very various. So when you get into a market, really definitely need to understand how much that would cost. So we were underwriting it pretty aggressively because we feel like there's so much under rent going on that we can achieve a total income increase in 9% and then 7% second year, and then it kind of tapers off, and then we keep at a 10%, vacancy. Um, but the good thing over here is, we were not able to get a very good LTV on the deal. We were able to get about 65% LTV on the deal, which is not a lot. But that allows us to have a very safe debt to income, services like debt to income services over here. which service our debt. Now, this is important. I want to point out because if you're underwriting a deal in COVID time, nowadays what we're doing is for our total income, I don't really care if it's coming from other incomes or rent increases. The first year I zero it out. And then on the second year, it'll be probably capped at 4%. And then the third and fourth year could be a little higher and it tapers off. But I like to see the DSCR to be above 1.3%. The bank used 1.25. What that means is that you can service the debt, like how much debt you can service. So if it's your income, like your total net operating income is 1.25%, like 1.2 times the debt, that means you can kind of service the debt pretty well. But our standard is at least 1.3, even on a super value add project. Usually we see our projects at 1.4, 1.5, which is a good number. Um, and then the cap rate I want to point over here is very conservative for Phoenix market. We are able to exit at 5% cap rate. If you have some value add on this, people always overbid because they overestimate the value, add the value to it right nowadays. So that number we definitely keep it very conservative to be 6.25, but we ended up exiting at around 5. Yeah, so that's kind of want to point it out over there. And so again, our units were like at 700 per door per month. I looked at it, I did all the comp research. I feel like comfortable I can move it to a $900, 850 to $900 plus the rubs. And that's kind of where we went. We ended up moving the rents, just doing a classic upgrade to 950 plus the rubs. And then for the 3 beds, we were able to get 1,120 plus rubs, which is way exceeding our expectation. Okay, so for due diligence, then you have to do the due diligence. Again, make sure you mute yourself. So again, so next step is due diligence. So when you got the project under contract, which we did, we got an agency loan on this. Then we start doing due diligence. I actually didn't even show up for the due diligence because I trust my partner that much, but they did like some FaceTime and they also took a whole bunch of video. I looked through all the reports. And then, inspectors will write you very long reports. You should expect that out of your inspectors. And then through all that, it looks pretty solid. We know there's some deferred maintenance on this property, like the roofs and all the other stuff. We just had them all budgeted in because we already had early access. We kind of already know. So nothing really super surprised coming from due diligence, but we were able to ask our seller to give us credits towards closing based on the roof and exterior paint stuff that we have managed to negotiate with him. So in this case, we were able to kind of knock off about 100K or so on that on discount, which is great. And we do lease audits, we do vendor inspection, we do cost. So what happens is on the day off, we coordinate with all the contractors, and they're gonna all show up: the roofer, the plumbers, the electrician, the PM company, and their construction units. They all show up and they, inspect the units. By the way, like my partner also found another guy who was a local vendor who is a independent contractor, and then he managed to give him like maybe a 4% out of our deal, and have him be kind of the GC of our own construction. So it's a pro and con. We have total control over that. You're not just having your PM company that kind of runs the whole show over there. But the downside of it, we have to manage the books separately. So it ended up to be like total nightmare in terms of auditing the books and keep like receipts, invoices, and audit. So add a lot of more logistics, but we probably saved a little bit money on construction over there. That's kind of what we did over there. So again, finding creativeness, how do you actually save some cost is very important, and how do you actually increase the income is pretty important too. So how do we actually fund the deal? In normal cases, like Prashant's doing syndication, etc., you would need to build an investor database, have partnerships, and do a 506C. Hopefully it's 506C, 506B, different kind of offering, and then closing on a deal. In this case, it's just our money, which is fine. But sometimes in this case, the lender has actually gave us less proceeds than we originally expected due to no fault of ours, because the seller has not kept up his collection in the last month. So when you have a downward trailing three P&Ls, like basically income statements, the lender don't really like it. So you need to really work with your lender, like work with your seller to make sure that they keep up their collection. And then this is what happened to us. And then at the last minute, we were 200K short because the lender wanted to like cut our proceeds. So these things happen more often than you thought. In this case, we were able to add a additional person to our deal and be able to kind of get that through. So this is a org structure. So what is a tenant in common? We put together with the tenant in common. We basically had three LLCs that we set up were EasyPS, that's us. And the basically you own this property in fractions based on the equity that you brought forward, right? So this is the only structure, and everything has to be managed within that LLC. So everybody is actually owning that property simultaneously. Everybody has a unanimous vote, so you really have to kind of work with your partner really nicely before you kind of get it into a deadlock situation. You don't want that. So this is kind of what I researched, talked with my 1031 exchange guy gazillion time and my tax guy gazillion time before I figure out like this is how we can do a 1031 exchange. So for some of you folks who doesn't have enough funding to buy a large property, this may be a good structure to put in, but you don't want to have more than four LLCs. And then when you think about all these as active partners, you also don't want to have too many partners before it gets unmanageable, too many cooks in the kitchen, right? So this is kind of like the sweet spot. Um, so closing a deal with lender. So the next deal is closing a deal with lender. I talked about cutting off the proceeds and all the other stuff. Very simple. We try to work with agency loan on our syndication deal as well as on our own deal. So it was a great, I always talk about parallel businesses with my student. So in this case, owning our own project, syndicating projects, they're all kind of parallel because you're using the same resources. Like I build a relationship from my syndication with agency loan lenders, so I can use them for these deals. And the lenders, agency lenders, don't actually like small deals, so it's actually harder to get qualified for a smaller deal, like sub 5 million loan amount. So in this case, because I was already on their list, it was easy to kind of get. So through my experience, I was able to kind of bring the team along to sign the agency loan and get that done. So if it's your first deal or first two deals, you may want to bring in a experienced sponsor who already has their loans, right, to kind of help that. Uh, there are many other lending opportunities. You should diversify from just agency loan to hard money lenders and bridge loan, because if you're doing a truly value add projects, um, you know, you may not be able to do agency loan all the time because that's where the value is. Sometimes property is mismanaged, right? So you probably have to do a bridge loan, or in some case hard money loan. In fact, when we 1031 out of this Silver Oaks deal, we got into a 24 unit deal, and we actually having a hard money loan on this. But it was a very crisp, clear how we would exit that deal. So I'm not really worried at being on that hard money loan currently, because we're on trajectory to refi it in 7 months or so over here. Um, and so sponsors, you need to make sure putting in a solid team. So talk with your broker, like your loan brokers very often to make sure preemptively putting up the right team for that. And lots of paperwork work. In this case, my partner did most of the paperwork. I coached him through it, which is great because then I didn't have to do all these paperworks. But lots of paperwork. The more partner you have, the more paperwork. Next step is operation. I think that's where the meat is. I'm going to show a before after video later, but we basically turned 18 units, and there's a lot of tweaking going on. Not every single project is always like, oh, this is what I planned, this is how it happened. You definitely have to adapt to situation when they come in. So we were turning tenants, renovating, ramping up, lease up. At some point, we were at like 70% occupied, which was kind of scary. But through some incentive programs, PM communication, we were able to kind of move them up. And also patience, I think my partner got a little scared at one point. I was kind of patient because previous project, we also had to take it down a little bit more, getting the tenants out. So it was a good attrition that we were going. And then definitely bonus structure on employees. And my partner was really on the employees. So, we were able to kind of spot them if they were doing something that is not correct. We kind of go in and try to correct them. Books and accounting, construction vendor management, these are all the type of stuff that's involved. We don't have investor in this case. Well, I have a partner on my LLC, so I give him a report. In these type of structures, it's much easier when you manage partner communication. I just have very direct communication with it. I just have one guy, right? We just get on a phone call monthly, and that's pretty much about this. And we create our own bank account. We do the distribution that way. So on the syndication deal, it'd be a lot more to manage. And then also we have to pivot our plan. So when we finished the 18 units upgrade, we planned for 12, but we ended up having to do 18 because people leaving, you just have to do them. And then we have to kind of pivot our business plan. When COVID first hit is when we first put our deal on market in February, and then COVID hit, right? So then we discussed about taking off the market, keeping it on. We ended up keeping it on, but we have agreed that if we didn't hit certain margin, we have a number baseline, we're not going to sell it. So we're just going to be patient with this. So it was on the market for about 3 months or so before I got it in the contract at full price. So that was really good. But then the closing was a little difficult for my buyer because he was doing the 1031, and he extended and extended, like it ended up to be like 3.5 months before we closed the deal. So all encounter was like 18 months with all that involved. And during that time, we also have to manage the collection really, really well during the COVID. So basically, write off the whole COVID with that property before we exchanged hand with that.
That's
So
good
there's,
mindset,
yeah,
Elisa.
thank you. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to manage over there. Um, and then also a lot of communication. So the operation kind of continues. You make sure that you have a lot of cash management. So we didn't take money back into our account. We just left it in a capital expenditure account. So we build up about 3 months of reserve, and that allows us to kind of carry through the whole thing. We didn't end up having to use it, but that was kind of like one of the things that you just kind of keep in mind when you run a multifamily. And last thing is when we exit. So before we exit, we actually consult our CPA. We make sure the timing makes sense. All the books are closed in 2020. And instead of paying one more year of tax preparation, we make sure everything closed in 2020. Even though it's closed in November, it kind of got cut pretty close to that. And also working with them to kind of communicate with exit plans and all the other stuff. And we also negotiate with the buyer, obviously, on a few things. And then how did we do? Just kind of conclusion. We sold the property in 18 months, including all that dragging from the buyer. Then we 1031 exchanged the property in November 2020. We averaged about 6% average cash on cash throughout the 18 months. Holding, that's because we had to put in more money to renovate more units than we planned. But it's okay. It's a co-ownership. So I just want to show you guys this because something can be different from projection. When you do a multifamily, you never know what's going on. And then we achieved a 91% total return. That is more than 43% IRR. That is 20% more than what we project on total return. So that was good. And then this is kind of the stuff that you're going to expect in a growth market like Phoenix. So lastly, just want to kind of play a quick video over here. If it plays, I can kind of fast forward this too. This is the building when it's kind of older. This is like the older building, and I'm gonna fast forward. This is the interior when we took over. Pretty run down. There's some poop on the ground. Don't know where that came from. And a year later, this is our office. Um, we put in new mailboxes because that was all like scrummaged through. Fix the gate. And then we're gonna see a updated interior. We did the plank floors, and we did some, painting on the cabinets, resurfacing the countertops, the basically the new appliances that you saw over there, and then also updated the bathroom, put in some nice little fans, two-tone paintings. And this is the exterior. As you saw that brown color, we changed it into a better design color. We added in some common amenities to, new roof, and also barbecues over here. Uh, Actually, 20 out of 30 units updated. Sorry, it was not 18. I made this video more accurately, and it's 100% was waitlist at the time. So that was it, guys. In terms of the project, and here's how you can contact me. If you find more information about me, you can go to easyfiuniversity.com, and then there's links over there to schedule calls, get to know what we do more. We also have a free Facebook group. Look us up on Easy FIU Lab or Northwest Apartment Investor. That's more for the Northwest investors, but this is kind of our new link over here. Cool.
Wow, that is awesome, Elisa. I think this is one of the fastest presentation and one of the most information-packed presentation I have ever seen. You are like a bullet train. Those who listen to you properly, they would tend to agree that it has so much information on small things. 1031 exchange. How to select the market. How to do the underwriting. I mean, small things. There's so many things that you covered in an hour. I mean, to me, it is very helpful. It was very helpful. I mean, I cannot thank enough, but I'm pretty sure others would kind of agree to what I just said. So that brings us to the second portion of this meetup. I'm going to share a deal, and then after that we have the third. We have the third section in which we
Prashant, can I
will
ask
do
a question?
Okay, so guys, just hang on for some more time.
Yeah.
Alessa is still here, and you will have the opportunity to talk. But in the interest of everybody's time, we don't want to take too much time. So let's jump on to the second section, and then we will jump on to the third section where you will have time to ask questions and connect with everybody else. So let me just share my screen. Okay, you all know that initially I did my introduction, and I've been in market like Elisa too, and in about 1,200 units under management for last couple of years that I have been doing. I hope, which screen are you guys seeing? You guys are seeing the opportunity screen. Is that correct? Right? What am I sharing?
Yes.
New, new share. Okay, you're seeing my opportunity. So yeah, we have done a couple of deals in Huntsville, Alabama market. For us, that market has come across very strong, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a minute. But the opportunity that we are working on currently, it's a Class A asset that we are working on. It's 98% occupied. It's from original developer, who built it in 2004. It's a Class A, very high grade asset that we are looking at. You know, it's in a strong job growth and population growth area. It's as I said, it's our fourth deal there. Because it is 560 kind of deal, we are able to talk openly, but of course in a closed group we can talk about it anyway. It's about private equity fund who may be, it's for anybody, any 5 or 6C investor or any private equity fund who may be interested in this kind of deal. Just few pictures on this deal. you know let me show it like this. Okay, you can read it clearly. Huntsville, Alabama, right? 98% occupied, 232 units, uh, 2004 construction. We are buying. It's an institutional class asset that we are purchasing. um, if you look at it, very high quality, A grade project that we are working on. We are purchasing it at about 40 million, and we are getting a loan from a local credit union, about 65% LTC. They are giving us 65, but initially they will do a little bit less. So initial loan would be at 60, and they will fund a capex that we want to put in this deal in about a year's time through draws, right? Our going in cap rate is 5.3%, and I'm not going to go into underwriting. We have done many underwriting. We have talked about it. Elisa has kind of brought everybody a little bit up to the speed. But those who are interested, I will probably have a separate webinar with them. Um, so just want to give a flavor. As of right now, um, we have only a little bit of construction. Not too much. Interior renovation, light interior renovation, about 1.3, $1.4 million worth of renovation that we have budgeted. And we are very solid about we are so confident about the opportunity because we have our team right there. We have boots on the ground. We have done 458 unit, which we are working on right now. Plus we have another project. So total 3 projects going on. This is our 4th project, and property manager is there, construction manager is there. As of right now, the projections are looking pretty decent. Not to brag about it, but Huntsville has been a great market. As I said, 458 units that we have earlier, even though our exit is about 4 years, in 2 years and half the renovation, we are almost getting what we had projected for 5 years, for 4 years exit. So considering all that in Huntsville, and this is not something which cannot be achieved. I think it is very realistic. The capex that we have is small stuff, pool and gym upgrade in this property. Refresh the clubhouse and leasing office. Some some stainless steel appliances. And then decorate the state of the art decorative street lighting. That's all we have. $1.4 million worth of capital expenditure on this. Our pro forma, I know we are talking about it very fast. It is looking, um, a 3-year refi and 5-year sale. And our net operating income, you see how is it going up from 2 million to 2.8 towards the end of 5 or 6 year. So it's just pro forma right now. As I said, effective gross income is from 3.2 to 4.3, 4.4. This is, we are buying, the real reason we are buying it is from the original developer. He's making a bunch of killing on it, and he's moving on, and the rents are below market, considerably below market. So he's moving on to other projects. It's a bigger institutional class asset. uh, it's a bigger asset, and our returns are coming out pretty decent on this. That's the only reason we are getting in. For investors, based on 5-year exit, this is 7% preferred, 70-30 investor versus sponsor split. So you can say in 5 years, investor equity multiple of 2.58, IRR of 23.78, and average annual return of 31.5%. Again, I'm not going into underwriting of this deal. If you are interested, I would love to spend time with you guys one-on-one. But as a cash flow, let's see, if somebody invests 100,000, the cash flow would be, 6,000 in first years, 8,000 in second year, 6,000 in third year, and then 21,000 and 216,000 in 5 years, if we exit in 5 years. So that's at a very high level. Okay. And we are exiting at a higher cap, 6. Even though we are getting in at 5.2, 5.3, we are exiting conservatively on 6 cap on this project. So, I mean, we have been into contract on this project for last 2 months, and right now we are in extension. Things got delayed for obvious reasons, whatever COVID and things like that. But we plan to close on this deal in January 3rd to 4th week, either anywhere from 20th to 30th. And we are just a little bit short. I mean, not too short. I mean, I have no reason to worry about anything. We will close it for sure. Anybody who's interested to know more about it, want to do soft reserve, if you go to http, my realty gains, that's my name of my company.com/soft reserve. If you go there, leave your number, name, that's it. And maybe I will invite you for another webinar, um, or we can send you a ppm link for the investment. And I will put this link in the chat window in a second. You know what, let me just do this right now. because I'm sharing, I'm not seeing the chat window. That's why, I was like, okay, here it is. Where it is. Chat window. Yes, I'm putting in the chat window as we speak. myrealtygains.com/soft reserve. Anybody wants to know a little bit more about this, please feel free to. Eric, Erickson, thank you so much. Just enter your information in this link which I gave. And just a little bit about Huntsville market. Okay, not a lot of people know about Huntsville market. The reason we have chosen Huntsville for the last 3 years is number one best tech hub to live in the United States right now, right? And so number two, US city with the best salary to cost of living ratio, and 13 best city for US, for staycation and whatever that means. Everybody knows right now everybody's in staycation mood. Toyota, you name it, all the companies are there. Toyota, Mazda, they are putting a lot of money in there, $830 million investment in Huntsville. FBI is moving, building a new campus, putting in $1 billion in Huntsville, Alabama. A little bit more. You see all these job announcements over the last 2 years. Toyota, Mazda, GE, Mercedes, Facebook, Google, Boeing, Polaris, NASA, you name it. That it's a booming market right now. It's actually a spoiled market. If I go there and try to buy it, I mean, sellers are asking ridiculous prices there, because the kind of asset that we are buying from the person whom we are buying from, we are fortunate that we got what we got, and we are pretty sure that we will get what we will get, that we have projected in our underwriting. So, just a little bit about Huntsville market, 192,000 median home value, 25 billion, in Huntsville metropolitan GDP in 2018, 17% STEM jobs, population have gone up, projected household have gone up by 2.1%. Population has gone up, 406. I mean, total population is 466,000 right now. The rent growth, important thing is rent growth is 7.9% in 2019, and average market occupancy in Huntsville is about 97%. So very, very strong fundamentals, over the last couple of years in Huntsville. And this is the FBI, relocation. Basically, they're putting in $1 billion. It's called, I mean, it's called Rocket City. I mean, those who don't know, um, it's not a complete MSA, but the market has been pretty strong. That's why we had focused in Huntsville over the last couple of years. And as I said, this is our fourth project, um, that we are working on. This is all I wanted to talk about this deal. Anybody needs more information, go to myrealtygains.com, soft reserve. For those who are passive investors, want to learn more about passive investing, I, like Elisa, I have done something in my life to educate free of cost. Basically, I have created a, a email course which is called myrealtygain.com 7-day email course, or there is a passionate passive investor club, and I'm going to put all this in the chat window. There are two links here: passionate passive investor club, PPIC, myrealtygains.com/PPIC, and 7-day email course, in which I like videos. It's really a video course, not email course, but it comes in the email and you watch it for 2-3 minutes. I'm going to keep all these links in the chat window for everybody.